Ladies for coming here.
I'm not telling that chicken story again. That chicken, I never will believe that. I can't believe that one little lousy old chicken would have me, get me introduced to a 3-star general. But,
Tell them what happened. Tell them what happened. About that chicken.
oh. All right. After I graduated from flying school, a lot of you have heard this, but I guess maybe a lot of you haven't heard it. After I graduated from flying school, I was sent to Florence, South Carolina in the 650th Bomb Squadron, 411th Bomb Group. And that was called operational training. You were already commissioned as an officer, and there were certain things that you had to learn to do in an A-20. Well, we had a general in the 3rd Air Force by the name of Sinclair Street, whose motto was never below 200 feet. So during the training, at operation training, you were required to make 2 low-level navigational flights. So I went out and made my first flight, just as nice as could be, you know. But about that time, before I got the 2nd navigational flight finished, I inherited a combat pilot instructor that had just returned from Africa. And when we got ready to go out on that, when I got ready to go out on that 2nd navigational flight, he said, "You get down on the deck." And he said, "If you fly at 200 feet in combat," he said, "you're a dead duck." So this guy had just gotten back from combat, so I said, "Well, yeah, sure, I'll do the best I can." So I went out. I really can't remember how low I was, but I was pretty low. So I went back and landed at the field, and when I got there, they said, "Stay here, the post commander is interviewing all the pilots." Okay. So I sat down, and I had been there about an hour and a half, maybe an hour and 45 minutes. And during that time, I looked out the window, and the airplane that I had flown was parked right outside the operations office. So the post commander, a full colonel by the name of McKinney, came in, and he was asking all the pilots, "What airplane did you fly? What airplane did you fly?" Well, during the time that I was sitting there, someone had painted buzz numbers on the side of my airplane. A buzz number, for you ladies out here, is great big numbers that are painted on the side of your airplane because A-20 pilots were notorious for making fishermen jump out of their boats. Farmers dive into fields and everything else, you know, and I wasn't that kind of a pilot. But anyway, they painted the buzz numbers on the side of the airplane, and when the Colonel McKinney came up to me, he said, "What plane did you fly, Monty?" I said, "That one right out there, sir." He looked at it, walked away. So I went up to the club. I was single at the time. Went up to the club and was sipping on a real nice scotch and soda, and I felt a tap on my shoulder. It was the post adjutant, who was directly under the colonel. And he had this funny looking little paper bag that was all wet in the bottom. And he said, "Monty," he said, "why don't you look in here? Tell me what it is." I said, "Okay." So he opened it up. I looked inside, and I said, if I remember correctly, I said, "Sir, it looks like the mangled, busted up remains of a dead chicken." And then the colonel turned around. I mean, the colonel was right behind him, and he asked me, "Monty, how high does a chicken fly?" And I thought that was rather strange coming from him because he was a chicken colonel, you know. Birds on his wing, on his shoulders. So when he asked that question, I got the feeling that me and that stupid chicken were about to be related. So remembering General Street's low altitude minimum, I said, "I think it's about 200 feet, sir." Well, obviously that was the wrong answer. So the next day, I was on my way to to MacDill Field, Florida, headquarters, 3rd Air Force, and I was ushered into the office of Lieutenant General, 3 stars, Sinclair Street. And we had a conversation. I didn't say much. He did most of the talking, which I really, Sinclair Street was rather colorful, and I can't really mention what he said around ladies. But it wasn't so much that stupid chicken that was the problem. The problem was when the chicken went up in the air, about 150 or 200 more chickens flew into a wire fence and killed themselves. You know, it's something like chicken kamikaze or something like that. But anyway, after the general got talking, I got through talking. He didn't know that we were getting just about, the outfit that I was with was just about getting ready to ship out anyway. But he says, "You're going back to back to Florence, South Carolina. I'll pick up your bags, I'm getting an airplane for you, and you're going to the West Coast, and you go to Europe, to the Far East as quickly as possible." He didn't even want me in the States anymore. Can you imagine that? But anyway, that's the chicken story. And believe me, to this day, I really believe that a good, healthy chicken can probably get up to about 200 feet. Okay, a few days ago, I was talking to a crew chief, and I discovered that not only myself, because I have used the term myself, but all you pilots also use the term, because I've heard every one of you pilots in here use the term, and the term is MY, M-Y. Well, this crew chief straightened me out, and I didn't realize that I was wrong. And I have been wrong for 50 years. A crew chief, I mean, all you pilots refer to your airplane as my airplane. You stop and think about that. It's not your airplane. It's your crew chief's airplane. The crew chief is the one that mothers that thing. The crew chief is the one that keeps that thing flying. And it's the crew chief, like Shorty Gordon over here, that has to work all day and all night to repair wings from careless pilots. So, when you meet a crew chief in the future, don't say my, say ours. Because you're just borrowing that airplane for 6 hours a day if you go on a flight that day.
First, I want to make just a short report on the plaque that we put out at the Air Force Academy. 2 years ago, you know, we brought this up, and in about 5 minutes, we raised $1,008. And I went ahead and had the plaque made, and thanks to Charlie Troutman, I got in touch with a firm that could do it for us in a short time, and we were able to get it done and installed on the memorial wall at the Academy in time for the dedication. We had $1,008, and as you know, the plaque cost $713. It cost $120 to have it mounted, and then I spent about about $200 on mailings and pictures. So we ended up with a slight debit there of $29 or something like that. Also, in relation to that, the company last year sent me a copy of a replica of that plaque, which is this size here, which they will make other copies for anybody who wants it. It's $15 and $3 for shipping, and I have order blanks there for that. I have one copy with me, and Colonel, I'm going to present that to you. Anybody else that wants one, I have the forms there for that, the application forms. This is what it looks like. It's really is a nice piece of work. Believe me, I'm not making any money off of this. I'm just doing this for the company because they were very cooperative in getting this done in time for us to get that on the wall. Now, in relation to that, Charlie Troutman told me, he said, Bob, you know, they have a memorial garden at the museum in Dayton. He says, wouldn't it be nice if we had a plaque there? So, would it be nice? I would estimate it would cost us about $800 to get another one of these made and mounted there at the wall. There are about 90 of us here, so about $10 a person would put another one there, and we could have it at the time we have the next reunion and dedicate it at that time, if you people want to do that. So, do I hear any seconds to that, or is that a dead issue?
That's the box.
Sir?
That's the box wrong.
Everybody want to do that? Shall we pass around, see if we can get $800 to put another one out there?
Say, for personal reasons, I would like to ask if anybody knows where Norman J. Summers happens to be. Know his address or anything?
Norman Summers?
Yeah.
No, sir, I lost him. He was my best friend, but I don't know where he's at.
Well, the reason I ask, we helped get him out of the water down there off of New Guinea. Hurt Klein and went down there. You know where he is, Hurt? Norman J. I'd like to correspond with him if I could find out where he is. And I'd like to put in a word for those Navy Catalina pilots. I always claimed that the Navy was our ally, but barely, because they always shot at me every time I got near them. But I'll make the exception for those Catalina pilots. They were the most courageous guys that you can imagine. That old big thing, I guess it wobbles along about 100 miles an hour, and it's a great big thing. But they would go anywhere to get people out of trouble. When the Admiralty Island battle was on up there, Catalina went in there and under heavy fire where a B-25 had ditched among the islands, and they got those 5 men off of that thing and started out, took off, got just a little ways, and they called him back, said there's another one in the water. He turned around and went back, picked them up, and he had 10 in that bird, and he kept doing that until he couldn't even take off, and he waddled out of there under gunfire with those guys, and that thing was a boat instead of an airplane. And they were really courageous. They would attack ships with that old Catalina, and my hat is off to them. They say a good word for them.
You know, the statement that Colonel just made makes me wonder. He said that every time he got near the Navy, they shot at him. And that made me wonder if second lieutenants were the only ones that were buzzing ships.